So we're going to use Kali Linux today. Like before, we're just going to download and extract. Okay, so we can visit this website, download Kali. I think by now we should be pretty good with that, right? I put down that you should use the Chrome browser because it would throw it under downloads. But if you use Edge, you just gotta make sure you save it to the downloads folder. So once you download it, it's gonna be here. Right click, show more options, 7-zip, extract files. So once you extract, you have a folder. Then we're going to open up VirtualBox. Before we mount it, we want to make sure that we give it more RAM and processor. So we're going to click Add. Close this. We're going to go to Downloads, the extracted folder, its subfolder, and the VBox file. So before we start it, change the settings. Click on Settings. Go to System. And we're going to modify this to 8,000. Processor, we're going to give it 4, so it's a little bit faster. And then click OK. And that's all you need, really. We're going to click Start. So that's part A. We need any help getting Linux started? Everybody okay? You need some help?
Yep. So, I started with one already, but it wouldn't let me down with the down.
Here's your Kali page. Yeah, get Kali right there. Left. Yeah, and use the one. Scroll down and then right there. Okay. Yeah, there are tons of them. It's being downloaded now. Now wait for that one to be done.
Wait for this one?
Yeah.
All right, and then, my page from here. On this way, you don't do this way.
It doesn't matter as long as you can save it to downloads, that's fine. As long as you can find it. We're good? Okay. So once it's downloaded, remember right click extract, okay? But right click use 7-zip. Okay. So once we loaded Kali, log in. And then you just need to do the update. So here I give you a little bit more information about SQL injection, and we're going to use damn vulnerable web app because that's the easiest simulation for us without having to code or, do additional things to it. So open up your terminal. And then let's zoom in a little bit so we can see. We're going to do sudo app update. Put in the password. You must update, okay? Because it won't let you install the DVWA. So it's going to take a few minutes to do that. You've seen this before, damn vulnerable web app. We're going to go ahead and install that after we did the update. But most importantly, so even if you install it, the services for it is not running. I'll show you where you can find that information, or there are instructions for you to use as well on the actual product itself or the DVWA. Okay, so I finished there. For the update, I'm gonna go ahead and run step 13. So we're gonna install DVWA, and you can also use git clone from their repository. I think it's DigiNinja is the account. So when you do the installation this way, you notice that it's gonna pull PHP, it's gonna pull Apache for you. So if you do the git clone, you have to go through the process of downloading those products because it's gonna come down as folders. So after you install that, you are going to start Apache. So we're gonna do sudo service Apache 2, and we're gonna do a start command. And nothing is gonna output there. You don't want error here. So if you see error, that means that maybe installation is bad or got corrupted. So after we start Apache, that's for the web server, right? Remember, it's through a web application. We're going, and you can use NGINX, but we're going to use Apache because ultimately the other product is using Apache in the back. And we are going to use MySQL because it's free and it's for Linux. So we're going to start, and MySQL is already installed.
There's a cat outside.
Hmm?
There's a cat outside.
A cat outside?
Yeah.
Oh. Is it next to my car?
No, it's in the parking. Yeah. It's
Oh, really? Because sometimes the stray cat in my at my house, there's a compartment under my car. Sometimes they climb on there, and then I take them for a joyride. I've seen that before. I've taken a little baby cat for a joyride, and then I take it back home. But anyway, okay. So we start the SQL and Apache, and that's important because the MySQL part, it uses MariaDB in the back, but because we're using Kali, it's in general, this is going to be for the database, this is going to be for the web server, okay? And then we're going to install PHP MyAdmin. This is a code that automatically generate an account for your administration for PHP. So sudo app install PHP MyAdmin, and we're gonna say a yes. Oh, hold on 1 second. Is it not letting you install with that command? I think that's where some of you are stuck, right? Let me go check there. Yeah. I'm looking at their GitHub right now. Give me a second. So we have Apache 2. Yeah, let me pull up their GitHub on here so you can see as well, but you can find it. I swear this was yesterday.
Move the caps.
A lowercase, that's right, that's right.
Yeah.
Thank you. I forgot about that when I wrote it down. My admin. So I was like, it should not be that complicated. So the fix for this is all lowercase. Yeah, under GitHub repository, it tells you to install all these other things, but yeah, for Kali, you just need that. Have any questions? Okay, so if that didn't work, then the other parts will not work, right? So you should see this. If you didn't see this, you have to do that step. So we are gonna leave Apache, and you can only use your keyboard for this. So we're gonna toggle it and make sure that we're pressing enter to proceed. So we have the Apache there, and then we're going to install the next part. It's gonna ask you about the account information. Okay, so here it's gonna say that the package for the database is installed. I think this is the easiest way. There are other ways. If you read the instruction for DVWA, they have, I think I wrote instruction for that before too, where you install individual packages, but this is a lot easier. So we're gonna go this route. So once you read this, you're just gonna click OK or press enter. It's not responding to my, let me see. Yeah, so hit the arrow key and then it's, make sure you select OK and then press OK. Press enter. And then it says configure database for PHP admin with DB config common. Yeah, we're gonna say yes. And then you're just gonna enter your password. So I just use Kali. And then move down, use the down arrow key to select OK and then say, press enter. And then confirm your password. So we're good. So all of these steps is just to set up your database and your web application for the DVWA. Even though the components are there, you still have to do the setup. It's on their setup page.
Stacy, when I click on this blue folder, it just says open, it won't let me go to the options.
So go back. You should have double clicked the thing. Go back. Back on more. Did you extract it already? So, you use Edge to download, correct?
Yeah.
Did you save it? So that one looks like you were trying to open on. Go here. I'm sorry, you're already in there. Go back to your browser. You're using Edge? Okay. One of these, click Save As. And then so you're putting it on your USB. You shouldn't. Because, we can't run it from USB, but if you did, we can copy it. But yeah, so go up, scroll up to downloads, click downloads, and then click save.
So it's gonna say that.
So now go to your downloads folder. Where are your instructions?
I was trying to download that, but it froze.
Okay, so go back to your unit 911 lab. And then scroll down. You submitted something. Click here to download and then download. Yep. And then save it to save as. Always do that, right?
Right, so that's what?
Save as. No, the document. and then downloads. Or your USB, okay? So in your downloads, it's already have the zip file. So go to your downloads folder. There. So it's still being downloaded. So when that's done, right click 7-zip and extract files. Don't use the other extract. Okay, so once that's done, we are going to do a start. So DVWA, and make sure we have a hyphen start. And then put in our password. So give it a second, it's gonna load. Now, when you're on here, these are some of the other options, right? We've done brute force before. So today we're gonna use SQL injection. But before we do that, you need to change its security, right? Because right now it's gonna be under impossible, and that's probably not gonna get you very far. So we're gonna make it low security. So click on DVWA security and change that to low. And click submit. Make sure that it's shown here. So even if you select low and you don't click submit, right, that doesn't work. It's going to come back to impossible. Now, when you close it and then reopen it, it's going to be back to its default settings. So you should always go here to check. And then whenever that you want to do the setup or the reset of DB, you would go here. And it's going to tell you what's enabled and what's not enabled, right? So for that step, I had changed to low and I click submit. I confirm that it's low. Then before you start, you always want to do the reset or the setup and then look at the configuration for it already. The only thing that will probably is disable is, it doesn't allow the URL. And then I don't have a reCAPTCHA. Okay. Now, if I want to do some of that, all you have to do is go to instructions and it tells you everything you need right here. The step is a little bit more lengthy and it goes into like configurations from the start, how to download. And then if you want to run this on Windows, you're going to use XAMPP. And it talks about that here. You should watch the video on how to set that up. Okay. But for the database, when you do this manually, you have to go into the configuration file and it has all the configuration for the user accounts. You can modify some user accounts, but because you install the PHP admin, you can also log in through PHP and modify some of the PHP component. Okay. So you see what that is. So when I look at this, when I come back over here to my DVWA, I can look at the SQL injection, but I would look at the security here, right? Make sure it's low. So we'll start with SQL. There are two areas. The regular injection, which is your basic, that's your in-band, and then you're going to do a blind, right? Sometime, my recommendation is, for most of the things that you do, you're going to do it through the regular tab, which is the SQL injection. And then in some cases, if it tells you that it's blind, then we would add that here. So you only have this field to work with. Okay. So now what we'll do is we would put in 1 and we click submit. That's it. Let me know. Are you guys running into the same problem?
Yep.
Oh. What about, let's try not just 1. So when I tested this, everything seemed fine. Perhaps. And as I put down the step, I test each step. So maybe we're missing something. Okay, let me double check. We might have to change the configuration file, which I hope we don't. Doing the update, so we did that, database setup. Stop this. Right, so we saw that we had to go to reset. Click here. So I will upload this again, just in case. Now, when you input the 1, I put here that because we want to place the ID is 1 for the query, and you simply do that. So when you do that, it's going to say select, right? It's going to issue the statement, select first name, and it's actually not last name, but surname is the one on the table from the user where the ID is 1. Now, when as a database developer, I would start with the ID 1 for the first row, right? So that will be your first user. ID 2 is your second user, and so on. Now, sometimes they might use multiple digits, but usually that's when we create it on the table. So just imagine kind of like Excel, right? Your first row in the first column, that's your row 1. So that way you would identify the S1. Now, in order to really identify the information, right, that will be correlated, I just use the ID so that way I can link it later, right? I can have it related. So when you outputting it onto here, when you're using the SQL injection, you put in 1, oops, right? And you click submit, you getting admin, that's the first account. So basically you're accessing the user table. So what I can do with this is I can do maybe 2, right? I can do 3. I would do it until it stops. 4, 5, 6. So each time I do it, I will record. So I know that there's only 5 accounts that I can view now, right? So here, that's basically you would get the username and possibly just the description for the user. So admin, right? The description is admin, and then the next account, you can see the schematic behind that. So when I look at account 2, it gives me first and last name. So I keep inject until I can't anymore. And so now what if I inject directly into the browser, right? So you saw that I could, so originally we had the 1, sorry, let me go back. So if we put 1 here, you see how it says ID is equal to 1 here? So take out the 1 and then we're going to put the 2. And then you just click this arrow and it should do the same thing here. So this is that means that the web app is vulnerable and the database is vulnerable because you're able to do it through the browser. Now, sometimes you can't, right? So as you keep changing the value to 3, 4, 5, 6, right? You would see that the ID is updated here. So SQL injection doesn't have to be here. It can be over here. Okay. So for the next few steps, that's what you're doing is to change the ID in the browser. And then you're going to make 3, 4, 5, and 6. I think it stops at 6. So you're getting blank at 6. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to add this. If you copy and paste this sometime, let me see, because I didn't try it with the Microsoft Word. So if we paste this like this, make sure that the symbol interpret, sometimes if we're using different applications, sometimes the quotation mark or the question mark don't work well, right? So if it doesn't work that way, you're gonna have to type. Hi, how are you doing? I forgot that you also have class, right?
So I get sidetracked.
Oh, it's okay.
I haven't seen.
Oh, right here. I printed all the stuff for you.
Good.
They're working on their hands-on exercise now. I call lab, but
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I printed out a bunch of stuff a week or two ago.
oh, yeah, but yeah, but this is for today. They're doing
Right.
SQL injections.
That sounds good.
Yeah. So if you want to hang around,
Sure, yeah.
anyone in the room's cool.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, so for the or, make sure that there are single quotation mark. It looks like a double quotation mark, and when you paste it, it might interpret as a double quotation mark, right? So we're gonna do the or, and then we're gonna do equal, and then another single quotation mark. So if you type it correctly, because when you paste it, Microsoft Word probably interpret that as a double quotation mark. So when we did it like this, that's why I put note here that you need to make sure that it is a single quotation mark. So we're gonna do a single quotation mark, or this is when we're using the operator now, right? And then we're gonna do single quotation mark is equal, and then single quotation mark. So when you're using this query for the injection, it basically execute this statement. So it's gonna look for the ID that starts with A, right? But in some cases, so when I output it, you notice it's gonna start with the first ID that start with admin, but then now it listed everything following that, right? So it's a good way if for an attacker, they would then be able to use something like this. And I simply do this query, and I'm able to see all the users from that table. Yeah. Say it again. You can do it in both. Yeah, but this is not a blind injection. You can test it with blind injection. So the downside is this particular web app, it's gonna receive both, and but the technique is actually in-band injection, right? It is not blind injection. So when you're using the same interface to inject and obtain data, you are doing an in-band injection. Yeah, blind injection is usually with scripted, but I have you use it so that way you can see. So if you getting the same result from both, so let's try that now, right? So I need to inject a single quotation mark OR and then that again, right? And then sometime it remembers it, so it uses cookies to revert back. So if you see it, you can just simply select it and you can submit. So you notice for the blind injection, you notice that the output is different. It's not giving you the full list of user, right? So the way that the blind injection work is now on this element of the database, it's only saying that, oh, you're looking for the user with the A, it exists, right? But if we're doing it in a regular injection, you see the list. So when you're testing databases, if you obtain more information this way, that means that you don't need it. It's likely that you don't need the blind. You can still go on with the query until you can't, right? So on a regular injection for this web app, I know that I can access almost all the table, all part of the table by just doing that particular operator in the query. My ID is A or anything else. Yeah, so you're gonna go to, so how move your, you can't use your mouse, so use your arrow key. and then up arrow key, and then now type in Kelly for your password. And then use your down arrow key to go to OK and press enter. Any other questions? If you did the blind injection, you're only getting one line. Did you get one line? Yeah. Just check how you type. So if you type a double quotation mark or a single quotation mark, or how your syntax is important. Yeah, so if you didn't get anything, that means syntax is incorrect. I just had to say that. Yeah, you can't copy and paste it because it's interpreted as a. There. So yeah, a user ID is missing from the database. Sometimes it would do that, right? So that means that it's not able to see a. Let me see the syntax. We can just type a. Is that the one? Try, okay, no space, okay, so you're getting ID is missing from the database. But let's do the regular injection to see if we get the list. Okay. So that's not. Reset your database.
So it's single, double, and then single, right?
Single.
Oh, single, oh.
All single quotation mark. I put that note there, right?
Wait, there.
Yeah, make sure they're all single quotation mark. I know we want to type the double quotation mark because it looks like it.
Here, it says.
Yeah, scroll down and then click the security. It's near the bottom on the left. And I modify a couple of steps, so we're able to get the user first name and last name, right? Or surname, it says on the table. So if you, on the regular injection, if you didn't get this, then your syntax is incorrect for query. So how do I know it's A in the query? Because in the first try, remember when you put in the 1, it gives you the first account, it's admin, right? So I wanted to start with the A in my, so I wanted to start with the A. So if it tells you account is missing, it's just not able to locate that on the table. So that's okay. And then you would try other ways to find information. It's not going to be exactly like that every single time for every database. But what you would start with is you would start with the number for the first account, the second account, and so on. If you can get that, then you can add additional query. So take a screenshot. Then what we're going to do is we're still going to use the operator in our query. We are going to use 1 or this, right? So it's best that we type that in. So I'll put that, my virtual machine right there. So we're going to do 1 space, and then we're going to do an operator or. And then single quotation mark 1 equal, no space, 1. And then the hashtag is to comment out the rest, right? So we're going to go ahead and click submit. So you should get result like this when you run that query. So it's gonna give you, right, the same thing like what you see in the last one, but look at the query is different. So how is it so, right? With the OR operator, anytime that it's true, it doesn't have to be both criteria that's true. One is true. We know that that worked the first time, and then one is equal to one is also true. So it's gonna output, right? So this is how we can also implement the boolean type of result for the query and for our result. Yeah, make sure we're low. Did you check to see if it's low? Your security settings. Go to the DVWA down, one more tab. Yeah, so you have it in possible, so click that, low, and settings. Just reset it. Yeah. And then if you set up your DVWA, and click set up, reset DV. Go down and yeah, click that. And then now you can go to the regular injection. Let's make sure we type single quotation mark, not double.
Here, do I understand inquiry one or just the one?
Yeah, so we need to set up a couple of things. So scroll down. Make sure you do the DVWA security, click that. And then scroll down. And then change the low. Okay, go come up, scroll up, go to set or reset DV. Scroll down. Wait, too far up. Right here. And then scroll down. Keep going and then click that. Yeah. Okay, now you would start with 23. So other questions? We're okay? All right, so describe what you see on the output. Now we're gonna do a union select, right? We talked about the union operator earlier. So you are going to do. So for the union, anytime that you use the union in the query, the single quotation mark, and then you always have a space after that, right? So if you don't use the space, if your syntax is incorrect, you're not gonna get any kind of output, or you will be unsuccessful in injecting. So we're gonna do, and you can do capital or lowercase. We're gonna do a union select state query, and we're gonna do a 1, and after the 1, no space. And we're gonna use the @ symbol, that's just a decorator. And remember, the hashtag is just comment out the rest. So if you type that correctly, it's gonna tell you, and the reason why we use version is it's gonna give you the database version, right? Remember that the attacker, when they inject, their goal is to find as much information about the database as much as possible. So here you're gonna get the version of your database. But you should ask me, wait, we install MySQL, why does it show me MariaDB? Well, because Kali Linux, when you installing and start your MySQL, but when you install the damn vulnerable web app, it also installs the MariaDB. So it uses MariaDB along with MySQL. Yeah, what do you see in red? The first and last name, right? Yeah, just follow the instructions. You should be fine. Are we okay? So now we have the database version. What should I find next, right? So this gives me this query I put here. It should generate some kind of error, because why is it an error? Database version is not a surname. It's not a last name. we intentionally wanted to put in the version so that way it gives it, because I know that it's only gonna give me the first and the last name of the account and possibly some information about the password. So if you're using the @version there, it's gonna force it to give you the version information in the place of the last name, right? So it does generate some kind of error-based content there for you. Okay, so this is a harder one. So I move you from something simple with union select. So once I have the version of my database, I want to know more about the table because it is relational database. So of course it's going to use at least one table. So the next command or the next query that you see is going to command the database to give it a table name. But make sure that we have the underscore, the space. Now the null there, right? Later on, I also put the description for the null. If you look at, we're going to use a bunch of the null. So null is a special marker that indicated the data value does not exist in the database. So when we use this, we simply just say that we're going to find the table name and we're going to use a marker for something that doesn't exist, right, from the schema table. So that allows you to, number one, use the union operator. Two, we're going to use null operator. And then we're going to be able to pull the table name. So you should be successful with this because I tested this 5 times yesterday. Okay, so when we get the result, it should tell you the table name. If it's just loading blank page, then you're not typing in the correct field.
I don't understand this.
So SQL injection is about adding some kind of value into the field to get some kind of result, right? So what result do you see there? What information do you see there when you type in a 1? It tells you that the ID is 1.
ID is one.
And what else? The first name is admin and the last name is admin. So likely that it is a user account with the ID 1, right? So when we create a list of user in a database, we need to give it a unique ID for the first account, the unique ID for the second account. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
And then we would put in, for example, I make your account OB Gabriel and then your last name,
Yeah.
right? So it's exactly that.
So now is it asking me to input more or? we
Yeah,
already know?
so the instruction tells you here, right? So answer this question. It says, what information is shown on the page? I want you to understand that first.
The ID, user ID.
The user ID from the table of the database and
First and last.
of the account. That's correct. That's correct. And then you're gonna read the instruction. It's gonna tell you how you're gonna do too. Yes. Okay. Anybody else having the same issue? Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Space in front of union select. Doesn't work? Let me try.
Yes, it is both for the record number.
I don't think it matters though. I think the following steps also give you the table name. So if you can't get the table name from step 31, you can do 32. And dash dash, I'm sorry, Microsoft Word convert that. It's a double dash. Like that. Like this, so fix, oh, I'm getting the same thing. So let me fix this query. So if you don't have 31, that's okay. Do 32, because I made sure that this one should work. So if you look, they're kind of almost the same, right? There should be a space right here. So do 32. So if you look, it's still a union select query, but the null, instead of using null from, you are going to put null in front of the table name. And we are going to still pull it from information schema table. But instead of using the double dashes, you can use the comment symbol. So do 32 instead if you can't get 31 to work. It's okay. I'll fix that.
Those, B, sends you the URL, this is it, right?
Yeah, so in the URL, where's the ID? ID is 1, right? Yeah, because you put in 1. So if you change the 1 to a 2,
You show.
which is what the 24 asks you to do. Yeah, then you will not get admin, you will get something else though, the second user. Okay, so once we have the table name, right? The next step for the attacker is to get the system name. So you want to know what is the server name that has the database? So logically, when you think about that, we are moving closer to the target by looking at some information that we can use, right? So as a pen tester, you got to make sure that you logically think through your step. So are we okay with 32? Any complication with 32?
32, okay.
We're not getting it?
No, okay, we're going through.
Yeah, 32. Yeah, it should be the same. So you see your table name. We have check constraints, character sets, application rules. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, for this one, it's giving you the column name. 32, you guys, column name. Yeah, because it's saying it's column name. Oh, no. I'm saying when you have table name, so it's saying it's blur out table name, but from that, it should also give you the table name. So here you have all plugins, column, applicable roles, character sets, check constraints, collations, character sets, applicability. Column privileges. Full function. Table state. Many. But users at the end. You see it? So when you guys do 32, you have to scroll through all the columns to get to the table name. It's at the bottom. Okay. So the columns are listed, but you have to scroll down and see. It should say like a name. So does that make sense that that table name is users, right? Because it contains user accounts? Yeah, so whenever that you insert text right there, you're generating a query. Query is just like asking the system for information. So now, so did you change, did you do what I asked you? Okay, so now it gives you Gordon Brown as the second user, right? Okay, now you're gonna do that for 3 and then submit, yeah, 3 and then click the arrow to see if it's a different or the same user, 4, 5, and 6 and write it down. Okay, then we're gonna, after we have the host name, right, the table name, then we have the system name, the actual computer that stores the database. So that one, let's try that one. So we're gonna do a space un select. And you notice the query that you enter because it's using cookies, so it's storing your old information. No, and no space after no. Okay. I think this reference the account, it should, sometime it would say localhost, right? So the reason why it says Cali is because we are accessing it as Cali, right, on Cali machine. So if you install this on, like, let's say another system, however you name your system, it might see it there, or actually the server that runs it. And then what you can do is you can also see database name. Remember what we said about function before? So when you're using something like this, you're trying to call that function, right? So when you do this query, it's gonna try to look for the database information, which is its name. So alternatively, if we don't use this 34, we can use 35. And 35 uses the null operator, but it's still gonna use the database function. So if you want to know the name or the specific ID for that database, we're gonna use the database function in our statement or our query. So, okay, we're good? So the localhost is the system, it says at localhost, so it's installed on, so that's the actual system name, right? Callie earlier, I think it's referring to the account that you use to access that local system, that localhost. Yeah. Yeah, so DVWA is the database. So you might get slightly different output, but in general, we want to find the database name. Then for 36, this is using concatenation. So you can concatenate multiple strings together, similarly with a lot of other type of language. We can extract column names from the table, which we know that it's the user table. So you see that showing here, so you would put that into the parameter. And whenever that you're pulling table name, you are going to use information schema or anything related to the table, we would use information schema. So you can't do this step until you get the table name because you have to plug that into here. Okay? So this is only successful if the attacker get the table information or the table name. And if you might get a long list of columns, but I want you to just identify them. So realistically, in ethical hacking, we would list all the column names because each column might be important. Like we might have a column for encryption keys. We might have a column for hash. We might have a column for password, right? So if it's 100 columns, 1,000 columns, you list them, right? But they also have tools where you can take text and then convert it to CSV, and then you can use that to be able to streamline like how you access the data and report the data. But, you know, so I want you to get into the practice of putting down information that you need. And then after we find the column information, we're going to look for password hashes, right? We learned when we did the brute force chapter that password hashes is an easier approach to get into a password because you can get the hash attack, right, to get into an account. So ultimately, if I want to modify the database, if I'm a malicious attacker, I would try to access an account with higher privilege. So if I can get password hashes, I might be able to have access to those accounts. SQL injection is cool, just like everything else for cybersecurity would have to be, right? And practice is gonna get you to do better with the queries. Are we okay? We done already? No. Okay. So once, if you should be able to get the hashes for the password, I want you to screenshot it. So in the future, when you look back at this lab, you're gonna see what it looks like. But you know now how to set it up and then how to run it. And the more you, because this is only the general beginning query set that you would use, right? I try to introduce you to gradually getting into things like columns and tables and then directory and folder. So that's logically, that's where we would go find things. So, but you can do more, right? There are great tutorials with Portswigger and other sources online. So try those. I put a link right there for Portswigger. And then for 38, you are going to look at directories. So that's like the folders. The directory path for the database. So the folders where my database exists. So you would have large enterprises that have many databases, right? You might have one for the users, you might have one for the products. Sometimes you would have one database that would have user and product. But in the case that if you want to find other databases, hey, the directory might be useful because we can find the location where it is stored, right? We already know the system information. We now would have the directory for the data. How are we doing? Any problem? Which one are we on? Okay, it says to see if any user has the IDA in the database. Yeah, so it says no, right? Missing. Doesn't exist. Yeah, so it says It says take a screenshot, but did you put this? Okay, yeah, so it's not able to find any ID that has the A, but let's try it in the regular SQL injection. Click that one and then type.
I want to do A.
Yeah, A. Look it. Oh, no, you didn't. So type A, single quotation mark, or single quotation mark. Yeah. Or capital O-R. Single quotation mark again. Another one. Equal, and then single quotation mark. Okay, so we have to type these, right? So any question regarding queries? Okay, so let's see how the tool that we see in the industry does, right? You can manually do this, but hey, let's automate it, right? Because we might not have hours and hours just to run these. So in the past, I think you guys have already seen Sqlmap. We did like a small exercise on it, but it is open source. It's used for pen testing. So in Kali Linux or Debian Linux, I'm going to open up my terminal for the next part. And here you guys can copy and paste the command if you don't want to type it, but we are going to clone. So I'll do that. So we simply just download the repository for the applications. And then what you can do is you can just, if you don't know what this next step is, after you download, just do an ls. And it's going to tell you there's the directory here. So I need to get into that directory to run the application. It is written in Python. So you're going to do a cd sqlmap -dev. And then if I don't know what's inside it, I just do ls again. I didn't write all the ls step down because we should know that by now, right? So I know that there's a Sqlmap.py, that's a Python, that's the application itself, right? So I know that I need to call on Python to run the Python application. And that's because Python 2 is retired. We're going to use Python 3. So we're going to do a Python 3. And we're going to do Sqlmap.py. And when you start, you always do the option H for help. So here it tells me these are the switches or the options in command that I can use. Okay. I'm gonna let's expand this so it looks better. Now, don't be surprised if these applications are not going to give you successful attacks, right? It's really the way that it's designed. Sometimes it works with some database, sometimes it works with no database, right? So it's really just like injection, it's manually, it's going to be a shot in the dark anyway. So you saw that manually we are successful. We're going to try a tool to see if it's successful. Okay. So I want to show you how you can use the wizard. So when you run this, right, if you're not sure, if you scroll down to the bottom, it shows you that you can use the wizard. So -- wizard is right there. That's the option from help. Man, help page is always going to be good if you don't know how to use it. So with the wizard, I can just add. So we're gonna do Python 3, and instead of the option H, we're gonna do a dash dash wizard. So the application is gonna load. Now it's gonna ask you for the URL. It's gonna be exactly the web application that's linked to the database. So this is realistically, right, this is hosted on our own local machine. And so we're just attacking our own local machine, so it's not really impacting anybody. But if you use this real life, it's gonna be the public IP or the URL that's registered, the domain that's registered to the public IP. I put the port there because it's just the way that we activated the web application on our system. So here you can just add the. Yeah, I'll be right there. Huh? Oh, did I? Oh, yeah. Sorry, I forgot this one. I thought I fixed all of them. So for IPv4, make sure that you have the 4 octet. 127.0.0.1. Good catch, Terrence. And then this is the port number. So let's Control C and start all over. If you did that, you can do Control C to cancel. And then rerun, up arrow key to rerun the previous command. And then we want to, I can paste and then fix that. So make sure we add the one. It's a loopback address, so it's going to come back to our system. And then it asks you, do you want to post any data, right? So whenever that you inject the query, the web server posts, right? So right now we don't have anything. If you want something to add to that, you can just enter that now, but we're going to press enter to proceed. And then it gives you the menu. It says, do you want to do a normal default? How difficult is this? So at the end, we're going to specify the level a few steps later. But if your database is difficult to inject, you want more, we want to specify that as option 3, which is hard, right? So we had it on low, so I'm just going to do a level 1, option 1 for normal. So when you select that and press enter, so type in 1 and press enter. Now it tells you, do you want to enumerate and get banner, right? We know that web application, we talked about this before when we did the banner grabbing, is that banner is going to tell you more about the system itself, what it contains.
This year, I won't go in.
You have to type everything in, space, single quotation mark, and all. Copy and paste will not work in that. So type it in slowly, each character at a time. You get there. So I'm going to go ahead and select 1 for basic. It says it's unable to connect to my URL. Oh, I closed my DVWA. We have to leave it open, so let's reopen it. Or did I? No, maybe not. I'm going to start it again. So. And then if you start it again, if you happen to close it from before, like this, I thought I did have it. Go to security, and then we want to make sure that it's low. It's low.
Do things that we want.
Nah, yeah, I'm just seeing to see if it's gonna give me anything. Sometime it cannot be contacted. Yeah, so it's not able to connect to the target. Oh, connection refuse. When you see this, it bounce. Possibly that something's blocking it. So this is mostly what you see realistically, right? A lot of times we run things, sometimes that doesn't work, and then we would go. So next we're gonna try to run it as a Python file now, okay? So I'm gonna let you know, spoiler alert, right? You're gonna get, so this application is, it's okay. It's gonna execute a bunch of attacks, but you might not be able to get any kind of result, okay? So then we have to modify different options to see if it works. So now I'm gonna try to do some injection and I'm gonna use DB options
We have to change the port on our,
to the database. Yeah, yeah. So did you get what Alex was saying? Mhm.
To redo the whole wizard.
So the trick is, that's a good catch. I didn't think, I knew that, but I just wanted to see if you guys catch that too. So if remember the page that we looked at before, right? So let's see, if you go to setup information, you notice that there's a port right here, 3306, right? That's actually for database. But the 40021 is for the web application itself. So when I put that here, right, it's only submitting attack to the web application, not necessarily the database. So Alex suggested that you modify the port number. So I'll type it out for you. So 3306 here. And if you kept it with the old port, it's gonna fail. Okay. Remember, ports are windows and doors to the system, so. So you can try the wizard, you can try the other ones with the database part. How are you doing? You okay?
I don't understand. Please.
Okay.
You want
So what
to
does
do
it
that?
tell you in the step? It says step 30 to obtain what?
From the database table.
To obtain from the database table, what kind of information? We can obtain more information, right?
Right.
So,
Yep, that's what we look.
no, but that's not the step that you're doing.
Yeah.
You're using the version decorator.
I just understand.
Okay, so that's the version. Okay. Now, yeah, this one you can,
Yeah.
yeah, so, but put a space before you need select.
For you and,
The whole thing, the whole, with the null and all of that. Yeah,
any space left?
before the union. After the quotation mark. Okay, so we gotta change this to for 3306. So when it gets to here, when you use the application Sqlmap, right? It's gonna tell you, do you want to try URI injection? Remember that in our setting, that was one of the things that we did not enable, right? That was the red part. So how do I know that I can go back to my setup in DVWA? So if you, in order to enable that, you have to go to the configuration file and modify it. But you know what? I'm just gonna let it do it, see what happens anyways, right? So you can type yes or no or quit. So it tells me that the connection is dropped. Okay, and the connection is dropped there. Okay, but if I do through the web app, let's see. What was it? 42,001. Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and inject this. So it liked that, right? For the second one, for, you know, so if you change that to 3306 with the DB, it didn't like it, but the wizard might work well. And then it tells me here that for the next attack, do you want to follow for the testing for the connection? Sure, why not? Yes, right? But keep in mind that when you do that, bandwidth, it's gonna take more bandwidth. It says that I haven't declared any cookies while the server wants to set its own cookie. You can specify the session ID and all of that. So here is where you can choose. So I'm gonna do yes. This is the cookie option attack. You have to get going. Okay, I'll see you later.
Oh, I just submitted the lab, by the way.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Have a good night, Professor.
You too. Okay, and then it's gonna perform these injection. You notice that it's doing it for everybody, right? Like Microsoft, SQL, MySQL, Oracle, different ones. And if you scroll up, it does all the type, the error-based, the blind, and other attacks. Okay, so we're gonna proceed by doing yes. And it tells me that, oh, all tested parameters does not appear that it's not able to inject, right? So I think some of the tools, yes, it's convenient, but sometimes that might not work out for the best. So it also did like the union test. That's what we did earlier. We got some result with the union test manually, one by one.
Space here and it's not working.
Okay, that's fine. Do the next one. Yeah. Any questions? Okay. So when you continue, you're gonna use, I'm gonna have you try to inject with current database options, SQLi passwords. Okay, so it's gonna do password tests for us. And then you're gonna inject for table information. Also, because we know it's a user table, you're gonna do the capital T, which is, it's for table. And you're gonna do the user. Now, earlier you saw that I specified in the wizard, like, is it difficult or hard, easy, right? So when you do that, you actually set the level and you can manually set it and the risk level. So I read a bunch of, I guess, feed through the forum about this particular tool. They say that it is effective if you do cookie attack with it. So you have to make sure that you have the session, the PHP session ID, and the cookie information. And in the past, we already saw how to get cookie information for our web application, right? You can go to the browser setting and look at developer mode, and you should be able to see it. Okay. So, are we okay? So make sure we do those steps and see if it's effective or not.
It doesn't change anything. When I get, do I have to hand type it?
Yes, you have to hand type it. Like I said before, right, Gabe?
Yep.
In the real world, no copy paste. It's okay in the class because it's convenient, but we have to type the commands. We have to type it. I know it's gonna be slow and slow. It's okay. Are we doing okay? Some of you already. Not like we have. Okay. So go back and practice. I'm gonna stop recording, so.